Welcome to the first episode, or official episode, of BStoltman Speaks. My previous episode that I released was a basic introduction in order for you to understand kind of where I come from and what I have come to know over my 10 years of studying this stuff. And I gave the opportunity for people in order to ask questions. And that's the main purpose of this entire YouTube series that I am intending to do, is just to let you ask your questions and I'll give you my views. This doesn't mean that my view is correct. I might not have all the information. Actually, I know I don't have all the information, but I also know that no one out there really does, except for those really high up that none of us will ever hear officially from. I did receive two major questions from two different individuals. However, they chose to ask their question through private message instead of through the comments for whatever reason, and that's fine. If people want to ask that way, they don't want their name associated with the question, you can PM me. That is completely okay. The two questions that I was asked are, what are my views on the ISON comet? And the second question is, how come the government shut down when we needed NASA's telescopes and the comet was closest to the Earth at that time? Both of these are really good questions. To start, I'll start with my views on Comet ISON. I have not followed Comet ISON that much. I have heard of it, I have looked it up, and I did a little looking into it afterwards. I knew the basics, and after I looked into it further, there still really wasn't much of anything. I mean, it's just a lot of different people arguing about the status of it. The biggest thing in the conspiracy world that people like to talk about is at first they thought Comet ISON might have been Planet X. If you're not familiar with Planet X, it is a supposed planet that has an elliptical orbit that takes thousands of years to actually come in close to the Earth and then, cycles away and comes back. And it is mainly, the information about that mainly comes from Zecharia Sitchin's work, talking about the ancient Sumerians and Babylonian texts and that, where they reference that, which, if you've watched Ancient Aliens and those kind of things, they talk about the Anunnaki who came here from there, and they think it came from that planet or something, and any of that kind of stuff. My views, I don't believe that ISON was the planet. It's a comet. It isn't that big. I mean, it's big, but it's not big enough that it would be considered a planet. It's primarily made of ice. However, there was a significant amount of rock in there too, but primarily ice, which caused it to be quite viewable at a great distance because it was very reflective. The Comet ISON, during the recent time, it actually passed near our sun and went behind it, so we weren't able to see. However, NASA has announced that it actually has melted and broken up and has deteriorated and all that, and it doesn't exist anymore. A lot of the conspiracists say that it hasn't broken up completely, and there is a video out there on YouTube where they try to show that it does still exist. Yeah, I think it probably still does exist. I don't think it was anything we were worried about. Truly, I don't think NASA was actually worried about it. It was just another comet that came through. I mean, we have them all the time, and people freak out every time they hear about one, but really it's not a very uncommon thing to occur. Comet ISON will not cause much of an issue that I foresee in it. It is coming around. We might actually, they're saying that there is potential that we could actually see some debris that's going to fall in the form of meteors and that come early next year, 2014. And maybe, I would say most of those are probably going to deteriorate even in the atmosphere if they even make it that far. So I don't see any reason to worry about it or anything like that. I mean, it's just another scare tactic. It's another end of the world scenario that people are trying to blow out of proportion and all that. And it is nothing. It is just distraction. It is something to make you look over here while other things are going on. And it was something to distract you from the economic situation in our current civilization, to distract you from all the corruption that is being shown in government and corporate ventures and all that stuff. It was just something to distract you, to get you to stare at and wait and, pray that it doesn't destroy us. So it was never a concern. I don't believe it is, and I don't believe it ever will be. So those are my views on it. How come the government shut down when we needed NASA scopes during this time and the comet was closest to Earth? NASA shut down. I don't think it fully shut down. I believe that it was still functioning. If you actually read the stuff, they said that it was partially functioning. They just let almost all of them go. The website dropped, so you weren't able to see anything that was going on through the scopes, but there were still people looking. If you paid attention also, you noticed that they said that there were a lot of government officials who continued to work even though they weren't being paid. And that probably was so that if it did reactivate, back then, did reactivate, but they didn't reactivate fully so that they couldn't actually hire or keep everyone on staff, that those ones would show dedication, they'd be more likely to be kept. Maybe from their own personal perspectives. I don't know. But it was never a worry. I don't believe that. If you go deep into some of the conspiracy stuff on ISON and that, I don't know how much of this I believe. I have seen some compelling video, though. Whether it's true, I don't know. I don't like holding on to those things. But they claim that we do actually have the ability of basically Star Wars type of stuff, where lasers and that. And there is a shot of the comet coming around the sun, and you see what almost looks like a laser being shot at it in order to, destroy it. And it's actually kind of compelling, because when you watch it, the thing's going right at it, coming in its trajectory, and all of a sudden the video feed cuts off of NASA's side. It just cuts completely, and they, brought up a blip saying, sorry, the servers are having technical difficulties or something along those lines, and then it came back later and we never actually got to see what happened during that period. So it was compelling evidence. It definitely makes you wonder, okay, well, what was that? Was it just another shooting star type of scenario, or another meteorite that was just on a collision course and it really was a fluke that cut? Or not? I don't know. I mean, maybe we have the power, maybe we don't. It doesn't really matter. But that's why it would shut down, as far as it did. Some history that some people might not know that might be interesting to you is that NASA, from what I understand from alternative sources, I haven't been able to back this up fully myself, but they say that it isn't actually owned by the government. That it is a private corporation that has basically a joint venture with the United States government, which could be true. That is true of like the Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve is not owned by the United States government. That's why it's never been audited or anything like that. It's not owned. But NASA was initially created shortly after World War II, and it was created under a project codenamed Project Paperclip, which you can look up and learn everything you want to know about that. But it was basically at the end of World War II, all the Nazi scientists and those that were doing all their genetic manipulation and their stock of that they had an aerospace program and that in Germany and all that kind of stuff, that those scientists that were heads of those projects were actually given a pardon from their war crimes if they would come over to the U.S. and work with us and teach us, what the Nazis had learned. And there were a lot of those. I believe Werner von Braun, and there were a whole bunch of names of people who were brought over here. And that those people were the ones that basically founded NASA. And so NASA was a technological research of aerospace that came from the Nazis. What does that mean? I mean, it doesn't mean anything really. It shows that it kind of came from a shady background, but I mean, we did learn a lot in that. But you know, to what extent it was, I mean, way back then they had these powers. There's plenty of stories about the Nazis having UFO type ships and all that in the documentation when you look through it. Whether it's true or whether it was extraterrestrials or whatever, I mean, we'll probably never officially know. But there is plenty of intriguing information about that. That's about it that I have for you. I mean, on those two questions that were given, I think I've conveyed it as good as I can. If you have any other questions, feel free to let me know. Private message me, comment on the video, however you want to do it. It's all good by me. If you want your name mentioned, I'll mention your name. If you don't want your name mentioned, I won't mention your name. It's not a big deal. It's all about the information, allowing people to ask their questions. Feel free to go into other topics or whatever. I mean, there's tons of stuff that I'm sure people are curious about. Ask away. I'll tell you my views on it. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, promote the videos, and I look forward to being with you again, and have a good day.